going on, guys? Ben from JK Gear and Gadgets, and today I am finally getting rid of the stock muffler on my Jeep and upgrading to a Magnaflow. I didn't go with the full exhaust kit. I just got the muffler on Amazon, 68 bucks, and a couple clamps right around 12 bucks a piece. So it's definitely an economical way to do an exhaust upgrade on your Jeep. Get rid of that nasty muffler on the back, and you know, hopefully it's going to sound good, maybe see some performance gains, but we'll see. Let's go ahead and dive on it. Alright, so we're going to do a sound clip of the stock exhaust. Let's see what it sounds like. Alright, so before we get started, I'd like to talk about a few things. All we're going to need for this install is something to cut our stock exhaust with. In my case, I'm using a Sawzall. You could use a cutoff wheel, whatever you want. Measuring tape so we know how much to cut. Your choice of a muffler and clamps. You don't need the clamps if you plan on welding it, but a lot of people don't know how to weld, so I figured I'd go ahead and make the video with these clamps. I might weld it on after, but the majority, probably 90% of the people watching this video are going to want to use the clamps. So I'm going to do the clamps, let you guys know, oh, they work, avoid them, blah, blah, blah. Kind of give a review on the clamps. So I'm going to also need ratchet, socket and wrench to tighten up these clamps. And one thing I would like to mention about the clamps and exhaust, the factory JK exhaust is 2.5 inches outside diameter, whereas the Magnaflow and most other muffler companies are going to make their exhaust at 2.5 inches inside diameter. So what that means is they're not going to be able to go right up to each other or slide over each other. If you weld it, that's no big deal. You could weld it together. But if you do need to get a clamp, you need to get a lap joint clamp. What that means is one side is designed for 2.5 inside diameter and the other one for 2.5 outside diameter, just because the tubings can be different sizes. So it's going to mate up a lot nicer and seal a lot better. I've actually never used these clamps before, so hopefully they do good. Hopefully they seal out any exhaust leaks, but I'll let you guys know. So before we do anything, I'm going to slide these clamps on both sides and measure how much of my factory exhaust I'm going to need to cut out. But before I even do that, I'm gonna go over to the Jeep and show you guys where I plan on mounting this. So I'm laying under my Jeep, checking out all my mad rock rash, but it's beside the point. I'm gonna put that exhaust right here, or my new muffler in place right here. So I'll probably start cutting here, end up there, but we'll see. I have to put it together and measure it perfectly. If you have a 2012 or any of and up JK with the 3.6, you'll notice that you have a resonator right here. Looks like a muffler, but it's not. You have one here as well as in the back of the Jeep. The back of the Jeep's actually the muffler, but since I have a 2010 3.8, there's nothing here. I'm gonna put it here. If you do have the resonator here, you could cut that out and put the muffler in place. I would do some more research to see what it sounds like without the resonator and only a muffler here, but from what I've heard, they're pretty good. So definitely up to you. I'm gonna mount it right here. So let's go measure the muffler. All right, so I got the clamp slid on over our muffler, both sides, with the orientation of the bolts where I want them rotated. I'm putting the Magnaflow symbol down towards the ground. I don't want these bolt heads anywhere, where they can get hit by a rock or whatnot. So flip them out of the way. When we're measuring this, we do not want to measure from end to end because we have to measure where we're making the cut. We're going to need the exhaust to slide in right almost to this ridge, that inner seam. So we're going to measure probably 1/8 of an inch away from that on both sides. So I went ahead and did it. I'll try to do it. It's kind of hard with one hand, but we're going to imagine it's right there. And over on this side, as you could tell, right around 20 1/4, maybe 20 3/8. I'll measure it, without the camera so I can get an exact measurement. And we're going to write that measurement down, and that's how much we're going to cut out of our factory exhaust underneath. So since we're going to be removing this factory muffler back here, we're going to have to go ahead and unmount this this little factory clamp. Most likely, if your Jeep's pretty old, by that I mean older than 2 years, most likely this is going to be super seized up, really tight, rusted, or just, you know, filled with crap. So before you go ahead and try to do this project, I'd recommend hitting it with some PB Blaster days, you know, multiple days beforehand. Do it a few times. Then it's a 15 millimeter. Get a really long breaker bar and break it free. I've already done it, so it's nice and loose now. But I'm gonna go ahead and take that all the way off, so it'll be easier to remove the whole muffler. Now, what I will say is, if you can't get this, or if it breaks, you know, shears off, easy option would just be to cut the bolt off, or even better, just get a Sawzall and cut the exhaust right there, because we're removing the muffler and it attaches to here. So either way, once we're done with this mod, we'll have the exhaust ending right here, or we can get another attachment that's going to go out past the rear bumper, depending on your state laws. So but hopefully it doesn't break. Hopefully you can get it off without any problems. One little tip I'd like to mention, it's going to make it a lot easier to remove this clamp, is to put the nut back on. Get a big hammer or a mallet and knock it really hard until this right here separates. Once that separates, get a mallet and hit it, or a pry bar, and hit it all the way over past this lip. So now that it's on there, we can get into these spots right here, pry those open, so it'll be a lot easier to separate those two. Once that bracket's out of the way, we're gonna come over here to the muffler hanger and remove that. Honestly, I don't have any tips for removing these. They freaking suck no matter what you do. So my recommendation is just to freaking cut it off. I'm gonna get my Sawzall up there and chop it. You know, you might know a better tip or another trick to get these off, but I always struggle with them, so I'm not reusing it. I'm just gonna cut that rubber right up top there. Alright, so the old muffler is out. As you can tell, rear end already looks a lot cleaner. Don't have that nasty muffler up in the way. So now that the muffler's off, just for fun, I'm gonna go ahead and start it up and see what it sounds like without a muffler. Pretty sure it's gonna sound horrible. So I'm down here underneath the Jeep again with the muffler, and just holding it up here, making sure that it's not going to hit any of these the frame cross members or my evap. So it looks like I'm going to mount it right here to right about there. Like I said before, take the measurement of our muffler, measure it out here on the exhaust, use a Sharpie, mark it on each side, take the Sawzall and chop that section out. So my measurement with this muffler was 20 inches or 20 1/4 inch. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my Sawzall and chop it off. Alright, so I cut one side, or actually I just did a cut and have the exhaust hanging here. Went to test fit, and I would like to say that I was wrong earlier, that this Magnaflow muffler simply slides right over the stock exhaust. So, I mean, if you want, you don't have to buy these expensive clamps. You could just get the cheap clamps that are about $2 at AutoZone or in your auto parts store. I'll probably still use the clamp because I kind of like how these how they fit. It looks like they're gonna seal up really good. Plus I already bought them, so it's up to you. I'll throw these clamps in the description, the video description, as well as the muffler, where to buy them. But in my case, the muffler slid right over it, and you can either use a cheap clamp or weld it. I still might weld it, I'm not sure. Now that I know this, it'd be a lot easier to weld, especially once I get it all installed. I can come back later and weld over it real quick. But my measurements are going to be off now, since I slid it overlapped it a little bit. I'm gonna have to hold up this this piece and mark where I want to cut it now, because I am you know, I want some of this to go inside here, just so it's a lot tighter of a fit. So I'm gonna remeasure it to make the cut, slide it in, and put the clamps on, and then let's fire up and see how she sounds. Alright, the final install's done. Got the clamps tightened down. And personally, you know, I think it fits really good up in here. I was actually really impressed with the clamps. They seal up really good. One thing I would like to mention is, if you're to mount it underneath like here, try to move it further back before this bend. Just because where this bends down a little bit, I do have a little gap under here with this clamp. Shouldn't be too big of an issue. If it is, I'll weld it up. But it would just a way to avoid that is to cut probably closer to this cross member. Move the muffler back right in line with that, and you shouldn't have any issues. So got everything done, tightened down. The factory exhaust is still running back and dumps right behind the axle. So it depends on your state or your laws. You might have to get an exhaust tip to clamp on the end of here to run it out past the bumper. I'm probably not going to do that. I'm not too worried about it. If I do notice any exhaust fumes inside, I will do that, but for now I think it's far enough back to where it won't get into the cabin. But let's go ahead and start it up and see what it sounds like, and then take it for a drive. Alright, so you know, it's on. Test drove it around. I got on the highway. It's louder than I wanted it to be, but that's just my opinion. Honestly, it's not too loud. It's actually louder in the cabin than it is on the outside, and I think I know the reason for that. I'll get to that in a second. But you know, for less than $100, it's a great upgrade, I'd say. You know, it probably is going to sound the same as if you spent $400 on the full kit with the rest of the exhaust tubing. So you know, it's more of a personal choice, I'd say, but I'm happy with it. It has a nice deep aggressive growl, but not too deep and not too loud. It's hard to explain, but you know, I like the sound. If you want like a quieter exhaust, I wouldn't go with this Magnaflow. Maybe try a Flowmaster, a different series or something. But one thing I will talk about that I said earlier, talking about that where the exhaust comes out right there. Right now it's probably resonating inside here. So if I extended that out, you know, a little, probably like right here, right near the bumper, I'll get less drone on the highway and in-cab noise, because I think what's happening is it's really just resonating in there. So that's not helping, you know, it's adding a lot of noise. But overall, for less than $100, actually less than 90, it turned out pretty good. I'm happy with it. The rear end looks amazing, so aesthetically it's a big upgrade. It sounds better, and performance, you know, it's hard to tell. You probably don't get that much. You know, the factory muffler on these isn't too restrictive opposed to some other cars, so you know, it's a good upgrade. I'd recommend it, and you know, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. Give the video a thumbs up, it really helps the channel, and subscribe if you haven't. So you know, stay tuned for some more videos. I'll throw all the information in the description of the video, so you know where I got the muffler, the clamps, all that stuff. So keep on, stick around for another video.